Would you stop a presidential motorcade for a 10-year-old holding a cardboard sign? Under the blazing city sun, crowds rushed past a silent figure on the sidewalk when suddenly Donald Trump, seated in his Cadillac, gave an order that left everyone stunned. Traffic halted, security braced themselves, and the world watched in disbelief. What happened next went beyond politics or protocol. It became a defining moment of compassion. Stay with us, because the choice Trump made that day will amaze you and challenge what we believe is possible. It might even shock the world. In our busy, often chaotic lives, it's easy to overlook someone in need. We hurry from one place to another, rarely stopping to see the stories written on homemade signs and anxious faces. But on this particular day, one man decided that enough was enough. With a single gesture, powerful forces were put on hold. Timelines, schedules, and even safety concerns. And all because a determined little girl and her cardboard plea demanded attention. That moment, small at first, would ripple far beyond one street corner. In a time of heated debates and constant headlines, sometimes it takes a simple act of kindness to reopen our eyes and prove that humanity can transcend any title or role. Keep watching, because this story will reveal just how far a single decision can go. Late in the afternoon, a line of sleek black vehicles wove through the city's bustling traffic. Inside the lead car, Donald Trump was reviewing an important report with one of his advisors. The world outside blurred by, busy streets, honking cars, and people hurrying in every direction. Yet amid this rush, something unusual on the sidewalk caught Trump's eye. A small figure stood at the curb, a 10-year-old girl with tangled hair, wearing a worn hoodie that offered little protection from the scorching heat. She held up a piece of cardboard, its edges frayed and its message scrawled in uneven, desperate letters. Despite the chaos around her, she looked calm but frightened, as though she'd been standing there for hours waiting for someone, anyone, to notice. Trump leaned closer to the window, his forehead creasing in concern. Without warning, he raised his hand and instructed his driver. "Stop the car." Confusion rippled through the convoy, with security personnel and advisors exchanging surprised glances. This wasn't part of the plan, but Trump's focus never left the girl's lonely silhouette. His voice, firm yet calm, cut through the startled silence. In that moment, everyone sensed that this small act of stopping might lead to something much larger than they could have ever imagined. As the car rolled to a complete halt, passers-by started to gather, wondering why a motorcade would suddenly pause for a lone child. The street erupted in murmurs. "What's going on? Why are they stopping?" Faces pressed closer to the tinted windows. Trump's advisor whispered, "Sir, we're not scheduled for this," but was met with a quiet wave of the hand. While the typical hustle of city life continued in the background, a profound stillness seemed to envelop the little girl and the black sedan. This was no ordinary pause in traffic. It was a pause in a routine that rarely ever breaks. Trump stepped out of the car, ignoring the puzzled looks from his security detail. As he approached the girl, she clutched her cardboard sign tighter, almost hiding behind it. Her eyes were wide, showing equal parts fear and hope. "What's your name?" Trump asked softly, lowering his voice in an attempt to ease her nerves. She swallowed hard. "I'm Lily." In a shaky whisper, Lily revealed that her mother was very sick and had no money for treatment. Worse, her father, a soldier, had died serving overseas, leaving them without support. Lily admitted she'd been on the street for hours, praying someone would notice. Trump listened with unexpected gentleness, nodding as she spoke. His bodyguards inched closer, reminding him about safety, but he waved them off. "You shouldn't be out here alone," he said. "Where's your home?" Lily glanced at her sign, then pointed down a cramped, winding road. She explained that her mother was too weak to stand, and they had no relatives left to help. Trump straightened his jacket. "Show me," he said, his tone firm. A security guard leaned in, caution in his voice. "Sir, we need to keep moving." An uneasy tension rippled across his security team. They exchanged wary looks as the city's normal flow of cars attempted to maneuver around the temporarily halted motorcade. Yet Trump stood resolute, more concerned about Lily's story than any schedule or plan. In that moment, something deeper than politics took center stage, a sense of duty to help a family in distress. He gently placed a hand on Lily's shoulder and reassured her, We'll figure this out." The gravity in his voice told everyone present that this wasn't just a passing gesture. This was a promise. The motorcade veered away from the sleek downtown towers, leaving behind spotless sidewalks and neon lights. Block by block, the roads became narrower, trash-lined and cluttered with broken pavement. Dim street lamps flickered in the fading sunlight, revealing abandoned structures and graffiti-covered walls. In the back seat, Lily clutched her cardboard sign, eyes darting nervously as she guided Trump through a place few in power ever see. Her relief at being noticed mingled with fresh anxiety. Would he really help, or would this just be another empty promise? Security personnel exchanged worried glances. "Sir, we should reconsider," whispered a guard, scanning the deserted streets. But Trump stayed focused, nodding for them to continue. He kept his attention on Lily, sensing her mixture of hope and fear. Eventually, they turned onto a crumbling lane strewn with debris. The car slowed to a crawl, its polished exterior sharply contrasting the rusted tin roofs and sagging porches around them. A handful of curious onlookers peered from doorways, eyes widening at the sight of such an unlikely visitor. Lily leaned forward and pointed toward a dilapidated wooden shack. "That's where I live," she murmured. With that, the motorcade came to a halt, and Trump stepped out, determined to confront the reality Lily had so bravely revealed. A stray dog barked in the distance, and a gust of warm air carried the scent of cooking fires. A few children peeked from behind a tattered curtain in a nearby shack, their expressions a blend of curiosity and concern. Trump's team, usually confident and composed, now appeared uneasy. This was not just a visit, it was a journey into a world they couldn't ignore. Every step Trump took on the rough, uneven ground echoed the weight of the moment, a reminder that hardships exist just minutes away from skyscrapers and executive suites. Lily's eyes flickered with a glimmer of hope, as if she finally sensed that maybe, just maybe, help had arrived. Trump stepped into the cramped, dimly lit room, immediately feeling the stifling heat. The walls were patched with torn cardboard, and a single flickering bulb revealed a woman lying on a thin mattress. She appeared frail and exhausted, her cheeks hollow, and her eyes sunken from worry and illness. Lily rushed to her side, gently touching her mother's arm. A weak cough escaped the woman's lips as she attempted to sit up. Seeing Trump and his team, she looked surprised but also relieved, as if she had long abandoned the hope of outside help. Too tired to speak above a whisper, she still thanked him for coming. In a shaky voice, Lily's mother recounted how her husband, a soldier, died while serving his country. With no extended family to turn to, medical bills piled up, forcing them onto the streets. They lost their home, their belongings, everything. The only thing left was each other. Trump listened intently, his expression grave. Turning to his advisors, he commanded, "I want medical care arranged for her immediately. Contact every resource we have." Then looking at Lily's mother, he lowered his voice. "You shouldn't feel ashamed for needing help. Your family served our country, and we have a duty to serve you now." Quiet tears slipped down the woman's face. In that small, suffocating space, the burdens of her life seemed momentarily lighter. Trump's gaze swept across the room. "I need a detailed report on this situation. Tonight," he told his team. With those words, he signaled a direct commitment. Promises wouldn't be enough. Action had already begun. Outside, a few security officials conferred in hushed tones, worried about the unplanned stop. But inside, another reality took shape, a complex tangle of emotion and duty. The mother's eyes flickered with a faint glow of hope. She struggled to sit straighter, wanting to appear strong, if only for her daughter. Trump's gaze softened as he watched Lily cling to her mother's hand, neither one wanting to let go. A powerful sense of urgency now filled the room, making it clear this wasn't just a political gesture. It was a moment where compassion chose to rise above caution and time constraints. Stepping back outside, Trump found a small crowd had gathered. Curious eyes peered from windows and alleyways, their owners inching closer to see if help might arrive for them as well. Many wore the same weary look, clothes patched and worn, signs of hardship evident in every crease and tear. One man stepped forward, clutching a faded photograph of a loved one in uniform. "My son served," he said, voice thick with emotion. He never came back. Now we're barely surviving." Around him, others murmured their own stories, families of veterans who felt abandoned and invisible. Despite the rising tension, Trump made no move to retreat. His security team scanned the area, warning that groups of restless youths lingered at the far end of the alley. Still, Trump stood firm, gesturing for them to stay alert, but not force him to leave. One by one, neighbors spoke up, revealing the daily struggles of poor sanitation, limited food, and few opportunities. They stared hopefully at Trump, unsure if his sudden appearance was the answer or just another fleeting promise. Trump listened closely, nodding at each testimony. In these ragged faces, he saw untold sacrifice and crushing neglect. Gently but clearly, he promised, "I hear you, and I won't turn my back on any of you." With that, the crowd began to feel the first spark of genuine hope. As if to emphasize his point, Trump asked one of his aides to start documenting the stories being shared. He wanted names, circumstances, and immediate needs. A young mother holding a small child stepped forward, talking about her husband who returned from deployment injured, only to face endless hospital bills. A senior citizen recounted how his daughter served overseas and returned with invisible wounds, PTSD and depression, leaving them both in dire straits. Each tale hit with the force of a hammer, driving home the complicated reality of military families who are often forgotten. People pressed closer, desperate to be heard. And for once, it seemed the ear of power was here, listening in the middle of a neighborhood that previously felt unseen. Trump turned to face the crowd, raising his voice so everyone could hear. "No citizen, especially the family of a fallen soldier, should endure these conditions," he declared, scanning the weary but hopeful faces. "I promise to take real steps, not tomorrow or next week, but right now." As he spoke, Lily stood by her mother's side, her eyes never leaving Trump's. She could hardly believe that just hours ago she'd been holding a cardboard sign on a busy street, and now the president himself was promising to change her future. The faintest smile tugged at her mother's lips, reflecting cautious optimism. Trump's security detail remained alert, whispering reminders that it was time to go. But Trump continued, addressing the rapidly growing crowd with calm determination. He pledged to launch a crisis relief fund specifically for families of veterans who had been overlooked, promising on-the-ground support and direct medical aid. Seeing Lily's mother leaning against the doorframe, he turned back one last time. "I see you and I won't forget you," he said before finally returning to his waiting car. As the motorcade pulled away, the once grim alley now buzzed with a wave of relief. Residents whispered that this moment felt different, like a new door had just swung open, letting in fresh air and a bit of hope. An older resident turned to his neighbor, voice trembling. "Maybe they finally remember us now." Another quietly whispered, "Everything can change." As the vehicles rolled off, a sudden hush overcame the crowd. A soft breeze rustled torn posters on the walls, giving life to the unspoken longing everyone felt. It wasn't just about one visit anymore. It was a sign that their voices mattered. Community elders exchanged glances, perhaps a bit stunned that someone so prominent had walked these streets and promised immediate action. That quiet hush carried an undercurrent of possibility, as if the very air had shifted, leaving people contemplating what could happen next. Hope, fragile but growing, rooted itself in that rundown corner of the city. Within days, footage of Trump halting his motorcade to help Lily flooded social media. Clips showed him stepping out of his Cadillac, gently listening to her plea. Viewers across the country felt an immediate jolt of empathy. Post stories spread like wildfire, and news outlets picked up the story, praising the unexpected moment of human kindness amid political noise. Soon the hashtag #sign Hope for Heroes began trending, inspired by Lily's homemade sign and the promise that followed. Corporate giants joined the wave of support, tech companies set up relief funds, while retailers like Walmart and grocery chains organized donation drives specifically for struggling veteran families. Volunteers gathered at community centers to collect clothes, school supplies, and non-perishable food. The momentum was unstoppable. People saw Lily's hope as a symbol of countless stories that never made headlines. Charities and nonprofits quickly joined forces, eager to turn this spotlight into meaningful action. They coordinated medical care for those who couldn't afford it, set up scholarship programs for military children, and provided mental health services for veterans coping with trauma. Social media was flooded with first-hand accounts of similar hardships, fueling even more contributions. Before long, Lily and her mother found themselves in a TV studio, standing in front of bright lights and eager reporters. Shy but grateful, Lily looked into the camera, describing how her father once fought for a dream she now hoped to carry on. Her mother, still fatigued but visibly more at ease, thanked donors and volunteers for giving them a chance to rebuild. Through tearful eyes, she said, "We never imagined someone would care this much." Across the nation, Hope for Heroes became a rallying cry for unity and compassion. Strangers reached out to one another, guided by a newly awakened sense of responsibility that started with one small girl, a cardboard sign, and the day an entire motorcade chose to stop. In the following weeks, local news segments ran stories on families who received critical medical help or emergency housing. The shift wasn't just about monetary aid, it was about reminding everyone that sacrifice is often shared by entire families, not just the soldiers in uniform. People began hosting community fundraisers, cooking meals for neighbors who were struggling, and writing letters of encouragement to military families they had never met. A spark of empathy was now a sustained flame, illuminating stories that were once hidden in the shadows. Weeks passed, and Hope for Heroes surged across the country. Donations poured in, medical services were expanded, and job programs for veteran families took shape. To mark this growing movement, the White House organized a special event, inviting leaders from charities, corporate sponsors, and families who had been helped. Guests gathered in a grand hall lined with American flags. A hush fell over the crowd as Donald Trump stepped onto the podium. He began by thanking those who had caught the spark of compassion, first ignited by Lily's story. His words were direct, free of political flourish. "This isn't about me," he said calmly. "It's about the families who sacrificed and deserve our unwavering support." Applause erupted, but soon quieted when two special guests were introduced: Lily and her mother. Lily, still shy in the spotlight, gripped her mother's hand. Her mother, visibly healthier now, managed a small smile. The room fell silent, moved by their presence, living proof that collective kindness could forge real change. With a gentle nudge, Trump invited Lily to speak. Voice quivering, she thanked everyone for not just helping her family, but for bringing hope to thousands. "My dad believed in protecting others," she said. "I think he'd be really happy to see all of you helping people like us." The applause that followed was electric, filling the hall with renewed unity. In that moment, no one doubted the power and promise of Hope for Heroes. After the applause died down, various officials shared how the initiative had already funded new housing projects in underserved areas and expanded counseling for grieving families. Journalists scribbled furiously in their notepads, capturing each detail. With so many eyes on them, Lily's mother took a trembling breath and expressed her gratitude once more. She mentioned how, even in her darkest days, she had clung to the idea that people still care. "Now," she said, looking around the glittering hall, "I know it was true." Under a bright summer sky, people gathered on the National Mall for the unveiling of a brand new memorial dedicated to fallen veterans and their families. Flags flickered in a gentle breeze, while rows of folding chairs faced a large bronze statue draped in a cloth. Photographers, journalists, and volunteers milled about, chatting softly. The mood was a blend of solemn reverence and warm anticipation. Donald Trump arrived accompanied by Lily and her mother, both now recognized as symbols of the Hope for Heroes movement. Their presence was met with a standing ovation. Those who had followed Lily's story on social media and in the news cheered, holding signs reading, "Thank you, heroes, and we stand together." In front of them all stood the statue, a soldier kneeling to greet a small child, representing both sacrifice and the enduring hope that binds families. When the crowd settled, Trump took the podium. His voice carried a respectful tone. "Today we honor those who gave this nation their very best, and we stand beside the families they left behind." He extended a hand toward Lily. Her courage reminded us that sacrifice isn't just on the battlefield. It's at home, in hospitals and in neighborhoods often overlooked. That ends now. With a gentle tug, Lily assisted in removing the cloth from the statue. Gasps rippled through the crowd as they took in the sculpture's detail. The soldier's helmet resting on the ground, the child's hand outstretched in trust. Etched along the statue's base were the words, "They gave everything. We will never forget." Cameras clicked, capturing tears in the eyes of veterans and their families, as well as the quiet awe on Lily's face. Trump invited Lily's mother to say a few words. Though nervous, she spoke with steady emotion. "I never thought we'd stand here. My husband served this country, and I'm so grateful his memory will be honored in a place of such dignity." She paused, fighting back tears. "This memorial stands for every child who misses a parent and every spouse who lost someone dear. May it bring comfort and inspire all of us to do more." The applause that followed was thunderous. People rose to their feet in unison. In that moment, the statue became more than a monument. It became a beacon of unity, a call to action, and a promise that no sacrifice would ever go unnoticed again. After the ceremony ended, families lingered by the memorial, some whispering prayers, others taking photos to send to loved ones who couldn't attend. Lily and her mother stood quietly, the crowd giving them space to reflect. A gentle breeze rustled the flags above, as if saluting the moment. Trump's entourage gradually departed, but not before he gave Lily a small salute of his own, a final nod to the life-changing message she had carried on that piece of cardboard. Though this story's events are fictional, the struggles it illustrates are all too real for many veteran families across the world. Each day, people like Lily wait for help, hoping their voices will be heard. You can make a difference by volunteering, donating, or simply passing along this message. Sometimes a small act of kindness is all it takes to spark a chain reaction of compassion and change. Imagine what can happen when entire communities join together to honor those who have sacrificed. Share this story with friends and family, and remember, no gesture is too little, no step too small. Every heartfelt action can become the miracle someone desperately needs. You might think it's impossible to make a significant impact on your own, but every caring act has ripple effects. Perhaps you start by donating a small amount or offering to babysit for a veteran's family. Perhaps you call your local representatives, asking them to support programs for military families. Your compassion might be the first link in a growing chain that reaches neighbors, colleagues, and even strangers across the world. By reminding one another of our shared humanity, we transform empathy into real solutions. Solutions that might lift a burden or save a life. So hold on to that spark of compassion and do what you can, right where you are. Every day offers a new chance to show someone they are not alone. Let this be your call to action, to stand with those who have stood for us,